Hi, my name's Lee Thurburn, and I want to talk to you about software coding, about the vibe coding. I've been developing software for over 10 years, and most of that time, the development sort of modality is that I used software code writing developers overseas, mostly in Eastern Europe. My pattern would be I would get up at 5 or 6 in the morning, get on the phone or on a Zoom call with my developer or developers for an hour or two, sometimes 5, 6, maybe occasionally 7 days a week. Each time I would get on the phone or on Zoom, we would review the software stage where it was at that moment in time and look at the progress that had been made since our last meeting. And then we'd go over it and we'd make changes, adjustments, and then I would wait till the next day and then I would look at those changes and adjustments. So basically the cycle time to make improvements in the software would be 24, sometimes 48 hours, occasionally longer, depends upon the time that they were able to put into it. So cycle time is a big deal because, as you know, as a developer, as somebody that thinks of the code and designs the code, it's important to be able to speed the process up. And if you have a 24-hour or 48-hour turnaround time, every time you think of new changes, that really slows things down. So when I heard about Base44 right about the 1st of July of 2025, I was really intrigued by the fact that you could prompt an AI code writing bot to create the software for you. And I was incredibly impressed when I did a trial free account on Base44 with how fast they could the bot and the system could develop the framework for an application. Beautiful laid out pages and navigation links and all that kind of stuff really came together extremely fast. Now, in July of 2025, I was still working with an offshore developer to develop a software package called Carfleet Tools. And the focus of Carfleet Tools was to provide an online accounting solution to people that are Turo hosts. Now, my wife and I are Turo hosts, and rather than using QuickBooks, which I find very challenging and confusing, I thought I would just develop my own app to do accounting online and generate P&L statements on a car-by-car basis. And while you could do that with QuickBooks, it was kind of challenging and difficult, so I decided to build my own app and then decided that that would be a great subscription model for other Turo hosts. We developed it for about a year before we got to July of 2025, and we had a product that was really good. I'd been using it for the better part of a year and was just in the process of getting some people signed up as subscribers to it. And then I learned about Base44 and I got on it, and literally within about 3 or 4 days realized that I no longer needed a developer and that I could just literally prompt the application into existence using Base44. So I let the developer go and I began rebuilding Carfleet Tools on Base44. And within a pretty short period of time, I had an almost working app. And but fairly quickly into the process, I probably spent 100 hours per week for the first couple of weeks, just completely absorbed with Base44. I'm probably not the only person that's done that. But as that first iteration of the software kind of came along, I began to discover some problems that really became major hurdles, obstacles to developing the software. And the first big problem that I encountered was the fact that the code bot would either intentionally or unintentionally redevelop code blocks that had already been developed. So it was kind of like a little kid wandering through a neighborhood on his way to a particular house that would stop off at 2 or 3 houses, play with a couple of dogs along the way. Rather than go do what it's supposed to do, the code bot would literally fix things it thought that needed to be fixed, modify code that it thought it could improve, while it was also targeting the application adjustment or new feature or bug fix that was being focused on, in my mind, by the by the prompt that I sent. And so what happened is, as the software became more complex, I got a lot of code base drift as the CodeBot would rewrite application software functions without being told to. So before I jump into that, I just want to say Base44 says build fully functional apps in minutes with just your words, no coding necessary. And that's absolutely true if your function is, if your app is incredibly simple. If your goal is to build an app that has monetizability, in other words, something that is useful, it's not going to be developed in a couple of minutes. You're going to end up spending a lot of time getting it to the point that it is a saleable, revenue-generating app. So they actually hook a lot of people by virtue of the fact that they're so good at building a framework out of the box really quick that you think that the actual application can be pulled together. But you're going to probably find that that's not the case. It just, it is really difficult to build a major application, especially an enterprise class application on Base44. But we'll get more into that in just a moment. So I want to jump in real quick to my Base44 account. Now this is the administrative side where I actually build and manage the application. I'm not going to go through any of the Base44 functionality. There's plenty of videos out there that do that. But I want to show you a couple of things that it took me a while to figure out. Lower left corner, there's a gear. Click on the gear, and there are two important things for you to know. You can choose your AI model. Now, if you don't make a choice, they'll automatically assign an AI model to you, and they assigned to me one of the Anthropic models, which is either the Claude Sonnet or the Claude Opus 4.5. I know that because something interesting happened. If you've developed enough software with an AI, you know that you kind of think of your software as a timeline. Okay, so you start at one point and you begin building and building and building and building, and I think of it as just a line and of progressively more complex code function that you build. Well, on that line, there's a bubble of memory that your AI has, which is the context in which it's writing code. And that context is your chat history, and it has the ability to remember what it did, but not a whole lot of what it did. And so what I discovered would happen is not only would the CodeBot have a tendency to rewrite code while I was trying to get it to focus on doing something in particular, it would just randomly rewrite code, which in many cases would destroy delicate functionality that we had worked real hard to achieve, but it wouldn't remember that. It would think, oh, I see something over here I can improve, and its attempt to improve it would literally break the system, and I'd have to circle back around and fix something that had already been fixed. That happened so many times. I can't tell you how many times that happened. And then there's database limitations that exist with the way that the system is designed. It's not a real flexible direct control over your SQL database. The CodeBot does the SQL setup. But the first thing anyway is back to the AI. And so it took me a long time, literally about 4 weeks, before I figured out that I could choose a different CodeBot. And I ended up choosing the ChatGPT-5 CodeBot, and that was a big improvement for a number of reasons. Another thing that I did not realize for a long time is that we have AI controls, and I'm clicking on the AI control button, and you'll see a window pop up, and here are some custom instructions that you can put into the system. And I put some in right at the top. Do not make any changes to code without specific approval. Do not make any changes to page layout without specific approval. Those are two of the things that I keep mentioning that we had a lot of problems with. That helped. Once I figured out that I could put that in so that every time a prompt would be sent to the CodeBot, it would review these instructions. It still made changes. Now, dramatically less with ChatGPT-5, in fact, almost none, but with Claude, I continued to have that problem. So back to the memory thing. So as your project progresses, the chat history that is in the CodeBot gets larger and larger and larger, and it reaches a point where it slows the CodeBot down so much that you could literally, the time between a prompt and a response, it starts out prompt response, that cycle is 1 to 5 minutes, often 3 minutes. Amazing, because you can say, well, how about this? And you send a prompt and the code and it comes back with the adjustment. You go look at it and you go, you nailed it, or you need to fix it, whatever. Cycle time is a real big deal. But cycle time after your project gets fairly large, it becomes extremely long, and in fact can reach a point where the CodeBot simply can't respond. And because you can't really do anything except for choose a different CodeBot to refresh. In other words, you can't stay in the same CodeBot sort of family like Sonnet 4.5. You can't just like, oh, I'm going to launch a new version of it, a new system. You're stuck with a incredibly slow response time, which strings out your development time. You can go cook a burger and come back and still not have anything done. In fact, it'll literally freeze up. So that's a big limitation, is the memory and the responsiveness, the chat history, over which you have no control. Another thing that you don't have any control over with Base44 is backups. You cannot do a simple click a button and back up Base44. Let me just show you. I'm going to go to Dashboard, and I'm going to show you the code structure. I'm going to come down to Code, and I'm going to just show you how many basically code pages and files there are. So Base44 organizes into pages, components, entities, and functions. Java, the layout is a slightly different thing. So I have a large application. I have lots of pages. Every one of these is a page that has code built into it. Functional code, not just page layout, not just HTML, a lot of pages. Then you get down to components. These are broken into categories. You've got your dashboard components and different sort of, in my application, I have fleets and transactions and reservations. Each one of these is basically code files for some aspect of the application. Then you have entities. These are basically your data schemas, your data field lineouts. And then I'll go back into code. Then you have functions. Functions are the things that basically affect the back end of the server. How does the server operate? So if you know anything about code, you know that there's basically client-side and server-side operations. So lots of functions. Here's the problem with all that. You can't just click a button and back it all up. If you want to back it up, you've got to back up every one of those files. Like here's create a Stripe invoice. So I click on create a Stripe invoice, and there's the code over on the right-hand side. I literally would have to copy and paste all of those into notepads and then store them. They do not have an integrated backup system. It's a major pain because you're going to need a backup with Base44 if you build a big application. Stuff's going to break, and there's no way you can just click a button and say make a backup at this point in time. Another issue, code ownership. Base44 is a platform on which all of this function works. You cannot just take this code that's over here on the right-hand side of the screen. You cannot just take it somewhere else and run it. It's not going to run. You're going to have to convert it, and realistically, you'll basically have to rewrite the whole application because you can't port the code. They talk about going to GitHub and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't really matter. That's not usable code anywhere other than Base44. So if you spend a lot of time building an application, you're kind of stuck with Base44. And here's the problem. They have real strict resource limitations. You cannot control how much processing power you have. You can't control how much memory you have. There's no scalability to Base44. So if you build an application that needs those kinds of things because you're going to put a lot of customers on it, like a software as a service, a SaaS application, Base44 is not a real good choice for you. Okay, so here's what the application looks like. This is a home page. It's Carfleet Tools. When you create an account, and you're welcome to go to carfleet.tools and create an account. When you create an account, you choose whether you're a Turo host or a host manager, or a couple of different choices there, and you get an account. The account will look something like this. Over on the left-hand side, you have a menu section. So we have an accounting menu with charts of accounts and transaction registers and bank transactions, credit card transactions, all of these things. You can import data to build your accounting data out. You have host tools. Here's where you import data from Turo. And then you also can manage vehicle fleets and reservations that you've already signed up for. You have a loan calculator and a number of other things going on here. There's a direct rental tool that's available. You can, in addition to renting cars through Turo, if you decide you want to do your own direct rentals, you have a complete direct rental management system. You can create reservations. You get a list of reservations. You have a booking calendar that you can put on your website so that other people can just come to your website and they can book cars. You have all kinds of other things like location management, where the cars are, extra services, and so forth. It's a complete online car booking engine. We call it Direct Rental Tools. There's a CRM database, an email marketing tool, and if you want to be able to create invoices and send them out for some sort of a service that's not related to the rental of a car, you can do that too. All of this is wrapped into carfleet.tools. All of this is an enterprise class, at least in terms of design, process for managing an automobile fleet. So it took me about 4 months to get this to the point where I really felt like I had a truly polished technology that people could, could really, it would be scalable. And so here's the next challenge. Base44 has gone through a back-end refreshment, sort of like when iPhone updates, and they want me to update. Well, they have a button. I don't know where the button shows up. Actually, it's over here on the back end. Here we go. They have a button. Upper right-hand corner, you can see it says Update Infrastructure. Starting February 1st, I'll no longer be able to edit this application because they want me to update to a new improved infrastructure that they've built. Here's the problem. With a sophisticated application like I have, when I update, everything's going to break. I'm going to have to go back through and rebuild. This hours and hours and hours of time, rebuild and reconnect functionality that up till this point in time had worked fine. And so not only do I not own the code where I can take it and do something with it, but I'm at their mercy. That's not good if you're going to invest time in building a truly enterprise class application. So what's the solution? Well, I've got a solution. The solution is actually called Cloudflare. So in basically the last week of November, I began to think, and maybe a little before that, but I began to think, I wonder if I could build my own Base44. So I began looking into that and discovered that with Cloudflare, I could do that. And as I began building the infrastructure technology for my own Base44 application, I ended up building something called XBot77. And building XBot77 is what I've now been working on for about 7 or 8 weeks. Probably putting, at least 50, sometimes 70 hours a week in to build this. And I have built a really massive, very nice, very functional application for building AI agents for clients to use. So XBot77, I would invite you to go create an account and play with it, but I want to come back to Cloudflare. So you can go to Cloudflare and you can create an account, and an account is basically free. There are different levels, and I've done some upgrading, but I'm not spending a lot of money. It's a very affordable solution. And instead of having a built-in AI bot, you use the AI engine of your choice. In my case, it's ChatGPT 5.2 is writing the code for me, and we're inserting the code here. So here is a page for workers. Now, they call these things workers. It's basically call them file systems for code. Think of it as a little server that runs code. I've got 5 workers, one for basic system functionality, one for my admin account management, one for users, one for the CRM, and one for data storage, file storage for users. And so those are the 5 users that I have now. The user, or the 5 workers that I have, the users file has 23,584 lines of code. If I just kind of scroll up, you'll see lots of code kind of flowing by. So this code does things of all kinds, building pages, running back end functionality, front end functionality. But here's the thing. I can copy all of these 25,000, 24,000 lines of code and save it into a notepad file, and it's an instant backup. If anything ever happened, I could just copy it back in from the notepad and put it in a worker. Boom, I'm back up and running. And of course, I do backups every day of new functionality that I've added to the system. Now, what is, very briefly, Xbot77? I'm logged into an account here as a user. I'm on the dashboard page, and you can see what the menu selections are across the top. There's an agent in the system. This is my agent chat. Now, you're going to notice two sort of chat sections here. There's your agent chat, which is where you chat with your agent on your dashboard. And then there's a bubble down at the bottom right-hand corner, which if I click on, that's a system support chat. Now, because I'm logged into the system support account, you're seeing both of them are the same. But in your case, this would be your agent over here on the dashboard, and then this would be the system support agent over in the corner. So you can ask things like, let me just go ahead and close this. You can ask things, who are you? And the system will give a response. I'll wait for that to respond, but you're actually dealing with ChatGPT 5, but it's not the one that's the publicly available ChatGPT 5. It's ChatGPT 5 specifically trained for your business or your information base. So anyway, ChatGPT 5 just answered, "Hi, I'm Agent X, the Xbot support assistant." So that's on the dashboard. You have a page for agents where you create agents and you style agents. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on any of this. I'm just showing you a couple things. You have your training section. Your training section allows you to create what's called collections. These are buckets of knowledge. In my case, I have a bucket, a collection for Xbot77 support, another one for forms, for email templates, for system knowledge, Xbot basics, basic information about who Xbot is, and onboarding data. So basically, to train, you either upload text files, which you can type in, or you can just copy paste from some documents that you have. You can also crawl URLs, like you can crawl a website page for specific information, or you can crawl an entire website and it'll just go find everything on that website and bring it in, import it in, and it'll store it down here in the knowledge base items section you see in this table on the right. Each one of which can be edited or can be deleted. You can go in and just do a number of things. Complete management system for your knowledge base. And so the agent is going to be trained by you through the data that you load into the system to be able to answer the questions that you want it to answer. So if you want to create an agent specifically for sales, you create an agent, assign it the sales knowledge base, and that becomes the knowledge base that it has to be able to answer questions to the public that might have sales related questions. Let's say you want a tech support agent, you load it with tech support data. You want to have an internal process management agent, you load it with internal process information, and so forth. You also have the ability to create workflows. Now, I'm not going to go into that because that's actually still a little bit under development, but it already works. You can create workflows where you fill out Form 1 and it adds data to the CRM, takes you to Form 2, you fill that one out, it adds more data, and when you click Submit, it sends an email or something like that. So there's a variety of different form and email and information-based connection options with branching statements that you can build processes that can help you in your business, whether it's dealing with customers or prospects or even internal workflows. We use something called tokens. Now, tokens are how we track system usage. We give you a couple 100,000 tokens when you create your account, and then you spend your tokens to pay for things like chat sessions and database calls and all that kind of stuff. We give you enough tokens to last for a good month. Some people will get a couple of months worth of use out of the system, maybe even more. But, if you're actually actively using the system, you'll be able to use the system for free for a month. Tokens are inexpensive. And again, you buy them, you put them in your bank. And if you don't need more tokens next month, you don't have to pay anything next month. It's not a monthly subscription. You're just buying tokens. We show you everything that you spend tokens on so you can see what the what your token balance is after every interaction that you or a customer or a prospect has with your agent. Of course, we have account information, we have referrals, and we have a CRM. So if I just click on the CRM, that'll take you over to our CRM system. We have a fully integrated CRM, very powerful, very state-of-the-art CRM. That's all I'm going to go into right now. I just wanted to introduce XBot to you, but I want to tell you, I built this on Cloudflare, and I built a system that is much more scalable. It's much more enterprise class. It has additional CPU resources and storage resources. This can grow to as large as I want it to grow, whereas with Base44, you're really limited. Plus, I own the code. I can complete control over the code. I can back up the code every day. If something ever happens, I can just refresh the code base with my most recent good known backup. This is not something that Base44 offers. So I'm just letting you know that if you're using Base44, great, good for you. You're probably running into some issues. I'm just going to tell you that when you're ready to graduate to a true, I'll call it an adult system, but it's an enterprise class system, consider Cloudflare. I'm not selling Cloudflare. I don't get any commission or anything. I'm just sharing what I've learned over the last, about 7 months of doing vibe coding, and I'm getting really good at it. And I would love to invite you to come to xbot77.com, create an account, create your own agent, play with the system, and enjoy what I've built. Thanks for watching.